happens to a past unremembered? Does it fade away into a faint meandering of the mind? Does it become an uncomfortable pause, or a recurring dream, or does it hide and gather strength in the shadows of the breath, feeding on forgotten footprints, waiting for the right moment to ambush a forward-walking wanderer? His unrememberings took all these forms. The pauses growing longer and longer with each year and each shoemaking success. All the forward-moving determination rewarding him beyond his dreamings. And it was there, in that beyond, that out-between place of awe and disrootedness, that the ambush began. As a barely felt gnawing, a tiny hunger just behind his ribcage that bewildered him because he couldn't figure out what he needed to quell it, or what it actually was. He tried sampling new colors, gorging on wilder patterns, filling his spare moments with trips to faraway places with hopes of satisfaction, inspiration. But the hunger grew and gnawed and nibbled and chewed, and afraid of sinking, he kept walking and walking and walking, and he walked himself still forward into a not real beyond where he couldn't remember why he was there in that place, flailing, uprooted, weightless, and willing his feet to take hold. To grow rooted, he commanded his eyes to see something, to grab onto that which would bring him stilled life. Something other than the new he created, which still loomed large and daunting and ravenous for the all of him. Walker, walker, there is no road. Walker, walker, there is no road. The road is made by walking. And in that grasping and flailing and thrusting and collapsing, he forgot his vow, and he looked back. And with a glance, the promise he made to his younger self crumbled. The breaking free feeling impossible and too intoxicating. And he blinked and breathed through the distant and familiar feeling of slowed circulation, a feeling that at one time overcame him with an ice-like numbness topped with a budding and energy-stealing panic, making the slightest movement impossible. And even then, he willed a leaning. He willed his entire self to turn, but he simply could not. But the remembering had brought a moment of stillness and a moment of weight. And so with his feet feeling the ground below and a body unable to turn, he decided to walk backwards. Slowly and carefully. Then quickly, unaware of its dangers, the ability to see into the periphery, along with the heightened sense of the spine fooling the heart into a false invincibility. And as he walked backwards, he sighed, and as he relived his unraveling, he gasped, and he again felt the bites of his story beckoning with sharp, tiny teeth, and he moaned at his step into the borderlands of success. And with purpose, he continued, perfecting his toe ball heel motions, becoming accustomed to the sensations of his back body. He still wasn't prepared to revisit the year he tried to live outside of color, and he shouted at that self, prodding him to live out loud. Not yet knowing or understanding that his past could not change, he kept walking backwards, daring the tantras of his childhood to see him now, out-screaming them and creating a verbal soundtrack that boosted his rantings and canceled out everything else. And he walked backwards, tripping over his fear, ripping open old masks of indifference and scratching through shameful rememberings until he could steadily walk backwards inside his yester world and make his way to the familiar feel of home. And on that threshold, he stopped walking. And with a newfound agility, he turned, knowing that the thing he'd been forward walking away from lived just behind the door he now touched. And it just might overtake him. And he stepped forward and in anyway. The seed of himself held and planted along the way quickened, and a tiny root sprang forth. And adjusting his eyes, he realized that he could see. Expecting shadow, a light all around surprised him. He looked for the monstrous thoughts and memories buried somewhere inside, wanting to catch them before he was discovered, but he could not find them. Only a piece he was unsure of, so he sat and called out and waited and slept until he heard the footsteps of the love he remembered outside the door. And when it entered, he leaned in and let it overcome him. And in a moment of content, he heard love whisper, "That which you expect to find can only live in the shadow of ignoring. It starts with a glance and flees with sentience. The only thing left now is the treasure of a fertile place for a new love to grow." And there in that place, in that full space of awareness, a place that held the truth of all that he was, he found room to begin anew. A place where he could wear his name again and grow free. Walker, walker, there is no road. Walker, walker, there is no